Hi, I'm Kev Hames and welcome to another 10-minute guru session. In this session, I'm hoping that I can both demystify and remove the fear that a lot of users have of macros. Most users I meet avoid these in the mistaken belief that they are difficult. At their most accessible, they are not. They're easy, honest. In fact, even the most basic user can create and use macros to make their lives easier. So, what is a macro? A macro is simply a recording of the actions you take to complete a task in Excel. Excel can then repeat these steps for you simply by replaying the recorded steps. Consider any repetitive task as having macro potential. These can take the tedium out of your work and are far faster than you doing repetitive jobs manually. Here we have a load of data. Okay, it's the road traffic accidents if you've watched any of my other videos that I've pasted onto a worksheet. I then have to tidy up this data so that it looks like this data. Okay, there's various things removed, there's a header and all this kind of nice stuff going on. So I've got February's data and you can see it's a mess. There's a lot of there's no formatting. March and April exactly the same. Maybe I do this every month. I copy and paste the data. Well, I've already recorded all the steps I made to turn that into that. So rather than redo all those steps manually, I'm just going to replay the recorded macro. And what I've done here is I've assigned it to a keyboard combination. So what I'm going to do is press the combination and watch what happens. Did you see that? I'll do it again on March. Okay, unformatted. I run my macro by pressing my shortcut now. A few moments later, it's done. That's no video magic. Excel just did that for me. So clearly, even something basic like just tidying up a spreadsheet, if it's the same jobs on the same rows and columns, then you can use a macro. Just simply record it next time you do it. Right, if you now pause the video, I have a learner task for you if you want to have a go, and that's basically this spreadsheet, exactly you saw it when I opened it, for you to have a go at running the macro. There are instructions in the sheet, but just for your information, if you click on the February sheet, which hasn't been formatted, and you hold down the Control and Shift keys and press and release the J key, so that's Control Shift J, and then just sit back once you've released the J key and you'll see the magic work. Try it on all three sheets. Once you've done, return back to the video and we'll then show you how we did that. We'll actually record a macro. Hi and welcome back. Let me show you how easy it was to create that macro. I'm just going to switch to a fresh version of the spreadsheet that doesn't have any work on it, so just switch over to there. There we have my macro start spreadsheet with January, February, March, etc. No formatting. I'm then going to repeat all the steps I made to create that last macro and do all that formatting. However, before I can record my macro, I need to set it up by giving it a name, setting the keyboard combination I want to run it, deciding where I want to save it, and finally a description of what it will be doing for future reference. I will do that now. I do this by going to View ribbon. On the far right, the macros button, and avoid clicking the button, click the little drop down arrow below it where you'll get the options, and there is an option to record the macro. And here we have the name, the shortcut key, where I want to save it, and the description. So I'll give it a name and I'll call it accident underscore data underscore prep. I'm using underscores because macro names can't contain spaces and certain other things are a little sensitive on how you name them. So if you get the name wrong, you'll get an error to say that the name's wrong. I now need to set the keyboard shortcut. Now the control key is already assigned automatically, so if I click in that box, hold down the shift key, and I'm going to use the J key, and there we have it, Control Shift J. Okay, so that's now set. Every time I press that, once I've got this, it'll run. Where do I want to store this? Well, you've got personal macro workbook, new workbook, or this workbook. Well, I'm only ever going to use this macro in this workbook. So we'll choose this workbook. I will describe the other options in later videos, but for now, we'll just handle this workbook, which is sufficient. And then we need a description. Okay, and my description is going to tell me what this macro does. So anybody looking into this macro can see what this will actually do. That's it done, all set up. Now once I click the OK button, it will begin recording. So let's click OK. Now from this point, everything I do will be recorded. Down here on the bottom left, almost invisible, is a little square, which when I hover over it says a macro is recording, click stop. So that's a stop button, because I've actually done nothing's been recorded yet. Okay, but when I'm ready to finish it, I'll just click on stop. Okay, so now I can begin working through my steps. So I'll start with the control home, so I end up there, and I want to get rid of column B, column E, I, J, L, M and N. These are the columns I no longer want in my spreadsheet. I'll delete those. I'll then go back to control home, and now I need to remove this unwanted empty row, so I'll delete that. I then want to resize it all because some of the columns aren't sized right. That's what these hashes mean. So the easy way to do that on a mixed set of data is to click on this point here, which is cell 0. That selects everything in the workbook, and a quick way to resize is just find one of these separator lines at the top here between the letters and just simply double click. The whole spreadsheet then resizes to fit the data in the column. Now I need to format the top row, so I'll go to A1 again and I will select the top row only. I use the keyboard shortcut of Control plus Shift plus the right arrow, and we'll give it a prettier look. So let's make it bold. Let's give it a background color. Let's put some borders around it. We'll do some all borders, followed by a nice thick outside border. That's it, top row formatted as you can see. Now I want to move the district column from where it is to the far left. So I shall right click on H and cut the column, right click on A, and rather than paste, so I don't want to be doing that, I want to insert it. This will shuffle all the other columns over, watch. They'll have district, reference, verity, sex, type, age, etc. Okay, that's that move. So now all I've got to do is the final step in the macro. Now we just need to sort the spreadsheet, and we'll do that by again clicking cell 0 to select everything, because each time we get the new set of data it might be a different size. Going over to sort and filter, choosing custom sort, and we'll sort by district, add a level, then by severity. Click OK, and now we've got it sorted by district and severity. Now that's the macro done, and you'll notice I took my time. I will have rehearsed this before. It's the macro recorder still working, but I've done with it, because remember, it doesn't record time, it records actions. So if I run away for 5 minutes and then come back and carry on, there won't be a 5-minute break in my macro. So we'll come down to the stop, the button, and just click it. That's it, my macro is now done. Now let's see if it works. Let's go to the Feb sheet, Control Home, because that's where I started, and then we'll do the keyboard combination of Control Shift and J. There you go, look, formatted. Do it again for March, Control Home to make sure we're in the A1, or just click in A1, then Control Shift J, job done, voila. And I can keep on going through the sheets. Now, whereas me working through all those steps manually took a little bit of time, that took 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds to actually do, and each sheet's getting formatted. So I now have January, February, March, and April still to be done. Right, before we go any further, now we know we have a workbook which has a macro in it that works, we really ought to save this. When we do this, we have to let Excel know that it now contains macros by saving it as a special macro version. This is called a macro enabled workbook. If we don't save it as a macro enabled workbook, then you won't be able to run macros. Okay, they just won't run. And this is a feature built into these programs to prevent virus attacks via macros. So how do we save it? Well, we can go to File, Save As, to bring up the dialog box. But my preference is, while I'm in here, I just press the F12 key. And that takes me straight to the Save As box, okay, where we can give it a name. So I'm going to call it Knots for Nottingham Accident Casualties 2050. You can call yours what you like when you have a go at this. Now, before we click save, we need to, this is the important step, save as type. We click the save as type drop down, and the second one in the list, there's a huge list, is Excel macro enabled workbook. Choose that. This workbook can now run macros, and just click save. This workbook is now done. If I now close it through File and Close, it's ready to be used again next month. We're opening it, and this is quite important. So we've come to another week, another day, another month, but however yours is meant to be working. I go to File, I go to Open, I find my workbook, and there it is. Look, Knots Accident Casualty 2015. And it starts to open a little slower than before because it now has macros, and this is the important bit when you open a workbook with macros. Security warning: macros have been disabled. Again, this is a security feature to prevent virus attacks. Okay, so although you've got a macro enabled workbook, you now need to tell Excel it's okay to enable macros, and that's what you do with enable content. If ever you open a workbook and you haven't created macros, then click the X there on the right hand end, and that will disable macros if you're not sure of the source. But for ours, we'll just enable it. Okay, the macros will now run. So if I now go to the April sheet and select cell A1 and then do my Control-Shift-J, voila, job done. So that is a very simple, very quick and easy to do set of steps that I no longer have to do. I just run the macro. Okay, that has got to be brilliant. When you start recording your macros, you will get some failures. By that I mean they won't run when you try to replay them after recording them. Don't panic, just remove the non-working macro and record a new one. What will happen is that you will get an error box. Here, let me switch to one that doesn't work and show you. Right, here we have a workbook. It looks like the same one, but this has got a fault in it. And I'm going to go and run this macro. Now I'm going to do this slightly different just to show you another way of running a macro. If we go to the macros button, and we go to view macros rather than record macros, I can see all the macros in this workbook, and I've got one called macro 2. If I now run that macro, this is the equivalent to me doing the Control-Shift-J shortcut. Okay, it starts to run, gets partway through, and then it stops, and you get this Microsoft Visual Basic runtime error. When you get this box, just simply click N because it means your macro's got a problem, which you will have created. Don't bother with the debug option. You don't have the skills or need the skills right now to actually figure out why it doesn't work. So we'll just end it. From here then, we need to delete the macro and then start again. I've kind of show you where that is. If we go to the view button again, to macros, click the drop down list and go to view macros. So this macro, when I've tried to run it, does not work. I'm not going to waste time or panic when about fixing it. I'm just going to delete it, which is that option there. Do you want to delete the macro? Yes, of course I do. Delete. You are now ready to start again, to record the macro again. I do recommend you rehearse it again first. Make sure you've got no other workbooks open so you don't accidentally click on one. That won't be open when you come to run it, but you're now ready to give it a go. And as you saw from that was quite easy. And that was a macro that was doing some formatting, some column and row removal, some sorting. It even moved a column. This is just the start of your journey into the fantastic world of macros. To break any fear you may have, simply dive in and have a go. Keep it very simple at first. Feel free to punch the sky when you get your first one working. Now, I want you to pause the video. I've got a student task for you to do, a learner task, and download the NCC Traffic Accident Casualties macro start file from the link that you'll see on the next screen, and then give the task a go. Remember, all the instructions for the task are in this spreadsheet. When you've done, just return here and we'll wrap up this video. Hi, welcome back. Hopefully you were able to recreate the macro we showed you on screen and you managed to complete that little learner task, and that's probably giving you the confidence to have a go at your own macros. Keep them simple though, remember. If you want to see any more great videos, then visit my WordPress site at www.entertrainingsite.wordpress.com or my YouTube channel Excel Beginner to Guru. We'll see you next time.